By the time she joined then Senator Barack Obama's campaign as a traveling press secretary in 2008, Jen Psaki already had a pretty impressive resume under her belt. She had already worked on a presidential campaign. She'd served as a member of John Kerry's staff during his run for president in 2004. Before that, she'd spent time as a communications director on Capitol Hill. She'd done a stint at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Given that experience, it's no wonder that when she joined the Obama campaign in 2008, she quickly sort of became a fixture. When President Obama ultimately was elected, Jen Psaki would go on to serve as White House Deputy Press Secretary and then as Deputy Communications Director. After working on the president's re-election campaign in 2012, she shifted to a role as State Department spokesperson, where she did daily briefings. And she attracted whatever the opposite of a fan club is from the Russian government in particular. Jen Psaki would later finish out the Obama administration as White House Communications Director. So tonight, as she joins us, Jen Psaki is just 8 days into this new role as White House Press Secretary, the most visible communications role in all of U.S. government. But this is not day 8 of Jen Psaki's responsibility in jobs like this. This is a woman who knows what she's doing. She's been through it already. Joining us now for the interview is White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Jen, it is really nice of you to come on the show tonight. I know you have every option in the world. Thanks for being here.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It is hard for those of us in the press and in the public to get used to there being a White House press briefing every day again. We were accustomed to it for so long, and then when it went away, we lost those muscles immediately. And it feels actually even sometimes hard to keep up. How is it going from your perspective?
Well, on the first day, I have to be honest, I got some texts from friends who said things like, "The world is counting on you. We're watching you, and hopefully it all goes okay." And there's a little bit of pressure on your shoulders, but you know, I am honored that I get to serve in this role and to serve for this president who, you know, every day is willing to answer my questions and wants to make sure that we're on the same page about the tone we're sending and what he's thinking about issues. And you know, the job is hard, but that makes the job a bit easier. So far, day 8, I haven't started to war yet. That's good. And hopefully I'm starting to lay the groundwork for rebuilding trust with the public. And that, I think, is really one of my primary goals at this point in time for, you know, this job.
The trust with the public and not having such an adversarial relationship with the press where the press feels like they are under assault and put at physical danger because of your words, that's also a nice change from the previous experience from the briefing room. But I have to say, like, I'm already feeling like the presentation that we are hearing from you in the briefing room already feels, I trust it, and I also feel like it's too nice. I feel like the challenges that the administration has on Capitol Hill are more stark than you have been telling us in terms of the likelihood that Republicans are going to go along with anything that President Biden wants to do. And so it's not a trust issue, because I believe you are telling the truth, but I believe, and I'm just going to put it right to you, I believe you are being too nice about what Republicans are likely to do. Do you know something that we don't do, or are you, or is that a fair assessment?
Well, look, first, I think, you know, you take your guidance from the person you work for. And for me, that's President Biden. And he starts every day thinking, I want to be able to work with Democrats and Republicans, and there's a reason they should work with me, because the pieces that are in, for example, this COVID package that is the top priority for him right now are things that Democrats and Republicans across the country support. 70% of the public supports them. Are Republicans now against reopening schools? Are they against getting unemployment insurance checks to the American people? Are they against getting vaccines in the arms of Americans? So we want to lay this out and speak directly to the people out in the public who are watching the briefing too sometimes, or watching clips of it too sometimes, to really explain to them what we're doing. So I promise you, I've been in this town long enough. So is President Biden. Nobody's naive in the White House about how hard it's going to be, or none of us think that Republicans are just going to lay down and work with us overnight. but we feel like we have to try, and we have to lay out for the public what we're trying to do, and that we are trying to work in a bipartisan way. And then we have a range of tools at our disposal to get relief to the public if that doesn't work out, and if they don't take us up on it at every opportunity.
One of those tools, of course, is reconciliation. I tried to lay out at the top of the show tonight some of the history of how we got the budget reconciliation process and how weird that is. But the fact that basically there's probably 2 shots this year at being able to pass something using that process, which would mean that you could pass something with just a majority vote in the Senate. You wouldn't need 10 Republicans to cross over and beat a filibuster in order to do it. If there are 2 shots at that, and that is going to be the way that some of this legislation moves, are we right to expect that that would be for the COVID legislation, the American Rescue Plan, and also for the big jobs and infrastructure bill, the Building Back Better initiative?
Well, I know there's been some reporting on this. We haven't even proposed. The president hasn't even proposed the jobs package yet, which he's going to do soon, in coming weeks. But I will say on the COVID package, the challenge we're facing right now, Rachel, as you know, and you talked about this on your show, is there's urgency here. If we don't have certainty, if the American people don't have certainty about being able to put food on the table, when we hit this unemployment cliff in March, if we aren't able to plan for how we're going to reopen schools, this can't be a game that's played where we wait and wait and wait and negotiate. We absolutely want it to be bipartisan, but this is one of the tools that we can use. And it's as you noted and you've explained on your show, it's a parliamentary procedure or step. Now, even if it goes to reconciliation, Republicans can still vote for it. There's no blood oath saying they can't. So we'll keep trying until the end. But there's an urgency here, and that's really our priority right now.
And is it true that the president has been calling Republican senators directly and trying to talk to them about their concerns and trying to assess whether or not they might possibly be yes votes for something like this?
Yes, it's absolutely true. And having sat in the Oval Office with him, when he decides to make one of those calls, or when he says he wants to make one of those calls, he doesn't really require a call sheet, because it's kind of a very Washington term, but a sheet that tells him exactly what to say to a member of Congress and how to outline the bill. He knows. He's known a lot of these people for decades. He has relationships that go way back, and it may feel foreign to people, but his view is that it's working how it should work. He laid out his bill. He laid out what his vision should be. He listened to really smart policy experts in the health area and obviously economists as well. And people are going to come back to him and say, I don't like this. I want this to be bigger, which some are saying. I want this to be smaller, which some Republicans are saying. And he's going to hear them out and see what's possible. And there are areas, for example, on the targeting of checks and making sure they're going most to the people in need, that he's happy to have that conversation on. But at the end of the day, he also has his principles, and he is not going to break this bill up. He wants pieces that address the vaccines, pieces that address, ensure we're getting checks to people so they can put food on the table, and money so that we can reopen schools in the package. He's not going to break it up, but he's happy to have a discussion about the components of it and the size and things along those lines, and that's what's ongoing. But yes, he picks up the phone. Sometimes he says, great, I'll call Senator so-and-so later today, or make sure I call that senator, I call them back and have a conversation. And I think that gives you a sense of how he's going to govern.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, would you mind staying with me for just a second? I have another couple things I'd love to ask you for, but I have to take a quick break.
Sure, I'd love to.
Oh, right back with Press Secretary right after this. We're back with White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Jen, thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate you being here tonight. One of the things you talked about today at the briefing was that we should expect executive orders from President Biden next week in regards to immigration. And that potentially includes what, for a lot of people, is a long-awaited announcement about the reuniting of kids who were taken away from their moms and dads by the Trump administration. We'd heard during the campaign that he planned to issue an executive order on day one, forming a task force that would take on that and start working on it immediately. Of course, that did not happen on day one. Can you give us an update on what we should expect on that front?
Well, this is something that the president is absolutely committed to, and you can expect you will hear more from him on it next week. And as you've done reporting on, and as Jacob was just reporting on early in the show, this is an issue people have been waiting on for some time, of creating a reunification task force that can help finally bring some relief to families who have been cruelly and immorally separated as a result of the policies of the last administration. So there will be more from the president on that next week. He has had a flurry of executive actions and orders he has taken, including and also put forward some legislation, including a comprehensive immigration bill, or an immigration bill that addresses and tries to provide a pathway to citizenship. But I know this is something people have been waiting on. Tune in next week. And also next week, Rachel, if I may add, one of the areas where he's really focused is rebuilding institutions across government and rebuilding trust, not just, of course, in the podium. I promise not to be so nice tomorrow, but also in, the career public servants. And next week, he's going to go visit the State Department and thank them for all of the work they do, and really showcase how government works and how incredible the men and women who serve and have been serving for decades are. And that's something that I know is close to his heart, and something we hope to highlight next week too.
In terms of the task force on reuniting kids, it's been said that possibly the new Homeland Security Secretary, soon-to-be Secretary Mayorkas, would be heading up the task force. It's also been reported that the First Lady, Jill Biden, and her office, her chief of staff, may be involved in some way with that task force. Can you confirm that for us and tell us more about what we should expect there? Obviously, this is something where the American people, I think it's fair to say, feel like this is a gaping moral wound that needs to be fixed. There are questions potentially of criminal liability for officials who effectuated this policy under Trump. Can you just give us a little more about how that will work?
Sure, and some I can give you, and I will say, when initially when reports of families being separated was covering all the news, my son was a baby, and I think watching as a mother, it just still makes my heart hurt. So I join many Americans who are watching, and others around the world. I think this is an issue that Dr. Biden has paid close attention to, and as a mother herself, that certainly will continue to be the case. She actually met her chief of staff, her current chief of staff, when they took a trip to the border together, or they met prior to that, but they did take a trip to the border together. It will be an issue that Jaleesa follows closely, but we'll see. She's not going to be leading the task force or anything. I'm sure she'll be following closely, as Dr. Biden will be as well. But I would expect the Ally Mayorkas, who we hope will be confirmed soon, will be playing a prominent role leading this effort, overseeing it, of course, out of the Department of Homeland Security. And we'll have more to share soon about the members of the task force and how it will work as we look ahead to address this really horrific challenge.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, thank you so much for your time this evening. It is fantastic to see you back at the podium every day, and I know that it is not an easy thing to do, but even when people disagree with you, and even when you were describing things that may or may not be popular, the fact that you are there doing it every day is a really important thing for our democracy, and it's the Lord's work, so go with God.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Thanks for what you do as well.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.